How's it going, everybody? I'm still here in Las Vegas, but yesterday, the CEO of Patreon issued a statement about Lauren Southern, It's Going Down, Generation Identity, and so I thought that I really should address this before moving forward because I use Patreon. Many of you donate to me through Patreon, and I feel like I owe it to you to talk about what's going on and my opinion on all of this. And so first and foremost, the most important thing, Patreon said this is not political, okay? And they did take down the media site It's Going Down, which has advocated for far left sabotage and property destruction and violence, and they did take Generation Identity. But the issues at hand are really about perspective. So in Jack Conte's video, he goes on to discuss about manifest observable behavior that Lauren Southern has in the past said she wants to disrupt these NGO ships, that there is a video showing her saying get in front of the boats and stop them. Now, Jack's perspective on what Lauren is doing and that it may result in a loss of life is the perspective of the left. The left believes that these NGO ships are going to rescue refugees, people who are fleeing dangerous war-torn situations and may end up drowning. So when they see Lauren Southern on video saying stop the boat, they say, wow, she is trying to stop a rescue mission, and that may result in a loss of life. And so Patreon took action and deleted Lauren Southern's account. However, the right feels that these NGO ships are either incentivizing human traffickers or flat out working in collusion with them to ferry migrants from Libya to Italy. The important thing to consider is that the situation in the Mediterranean is very, very complicated. A lot of people keep referring to this as the refugee crisis. Some people refer to this as the migrant crisis. The reality is there are two different scenarios happening right now, and it is very complicated. The Greek Mediterranean route, this is when people go from Turkey to Lesbos or to Greece. This tends to be your Middle Eastern refugees that are using this path. And the Central Mediterranean route, the route that was the focus of Lauren Southern and Generation Identity, is predominantly economic migrants. And this data is coming from the UNHCR. So I don't know if they're the best source. It's the United Nations, so people assume they are. But the reality is the left and the right view the situation very, very differently. And Patreon's takedown of Lauren Southern was a left perspective. The right feels that if Generation Identity, if people can just stop the NGO ships, they will disincentivize human traffickers who are putting people on dangerous and poorly maintained ships, which sink and cause people to drown. They believe that these migrants are being lured to their deaths, essentially, because they believe the NGO ships will rescue them and that as soon as they cross international waters, they're safe. Now, I talked about human trafficking, and I think it's important to realize that the left and the right both have valid points on this conflict. In the video, Jack Conte shows a photo of Alan Kurdi. He's the little boy who washed up on shore dead. It was a very dramatic photo, and a lot of people were shocked to see the reality of the refugee crisis, that people were willing to risk their lives, that people were dying to escape civil war. Now, they were two men, and I'll probably pronounce their names horribly wrong, but according to Wikipedia, Muafaka Alabesh and Assem El-Farhad, two men were convicted of human trafficking for having put the Kurdis on that boat, which ultimately resulted in a loss of life. Now, they were not convicted in the deaths, but they were convicted of human trafficking. So at least from a legal standpoint, the perception from the right is not without merit, that there are people who are trafficking people for money. They paid around over $5,000 to get on this boat. And the idea is the NGO ships present a sort of hope that even if the boats are bad, even if they don't make it, they'll get rescued. I don't want to talk about the politics of the Mediterranean and get into all of this because it is so complicated, and I am not the expert on it, although I know a little bit more than a lot of people, having been to Greece and Lesbos and having gone to many areas in Europe to look into this kind of stuff. But the reality is, as it comes to Patreon, Jack Conte and Patreon, they played a bad hand, period. Their communication was ineffective and poor. I tweeted this out. What Patreon should have done: they should have issued a warning to Lauren Southern and Generation Identity that continued action in this direction would violate their policies and result in sanctions, and further action beyond that would result in termination. This would give them an opportunity to say, look, Patreon's a private platform that can do what it wants, and they're giving fair warning that they don't want you here, so you have a chance to migrate and tell your supporters, hey, look, we're going to go somewhere else. But Patreon didn't do that. Without warning, they severed the income of Lauren Southern and just said the actions you're planning may cause loss of life. There was no chance for appeal. That means that Lauren went from making money to zero with the snap of a finger. Building up a base of supporters and convincing people that you are worth supporting is very, very difficult. Out of the hundreds of thousands of people who follow me, I have less than 1,000 patrons. And all of you support me. You are just absolutely awesome. Side note, I just can't believe that people are willing to help me do what I do, and I will always be grateful for that. But keep in mind, collectively, I have hundreds of thousands of followers and only around 800 or so people who actually support me on a monthly basis. So it's a lot of work. And these people who are on Patreon who have said, I'm going to sign up for this platform, enter my details, and commit to pledging are doing a lot of work, and they're pledging money. That is a huge leap of dedication to what this person is doing. And Patreon didn't just sever Lauren Southern's income, but it was a slap in the face to all of the people who took the time to sign up for their account to support someone they believed in. I've seen a lot of things like this in the past that don't just necessarily relate to funding, but there have been a lot of issues of funding. And I believe that many companies are more afraid of the left than they are of the right. Now, I don't know if it's a left versus right thing, but it tends to fall in that category very often. We saw VidCon, Hank Green apologizing to Anita Sarkeesian for her having insulted Sargon, because the issue seems to be, at least in my opinion, that these companies say just side with, the people who have the power, the people who are loud and angry. They would rather say, I'd rather piss off one side than the other side, and it tends to be the conservatives who get the boot. So I think Patreon is just trying to protect their business, and we saw them take down It's Going Down. It's Going Down was a website that was very, hard left and advocated for sabotage, pouring concrete on railroad tracks and things like that. And many people will believe that Patreon did this just because they wanted to save face. Now, in Jack's video, he says that's not the case, but again, people aren't going to believe that. They're just going to say, people have been reporting It's Going Down for a long time, and they only took that page down, that creator page, after the controversy with Lauren Southern. I've been a fan of Patreon for a while because it provides an alternative funding source. Since I started doing the work that I do, I have used things like GoFundMe and WePay to raise money on a one-time basis for my projects. I used to have a donate button on my live stream page where, as I was streaming, I'd say, hey, click that donate button and give me a donation. This allowed people to donate one time. And for every event I would cover, I'd make a couple grand. And it was just enough to keep squeaking by, but not enough to really make a living. Patreon created a platform where people could just easily sign up for a monthly contribution. And that's allowing me to do substantially more work, but also to plan and budget effectively so that I can know what I'm going to be doing in the next month and don't have to worry about whether or not I will be able to get to a breaking news story if it happens. Patreon was in a really, really bad spot. They had a couple choices. If they leave up Lauren Southern's page and Generation Identity, the left would attack them for allowing indirect funding to racists who are going to kill refugees. And if they did take it down, the right was going to say it was a politically motivated takedown against a conservative, against somebody who's trying to monitor these NGO ships and make a difference. So here's what I think. Funding platforms should not remove a person until they are convicted of having done something illegal. In our society and internationally, we have laws. Laws are the things that we all understand you can't break. Okay, sometimes laws need to be broken, there's protest, there's activism, but for the most part, if you're doing something overtly illegal, like fundraising to buy and sell guns illegally, like, oh, okay, yeah, like that's not okay, that's illegal. You're saying you're going to commit a crime. In the instance of overtly saying you're going to commit a crime, then your page should be removed. However, if you're saying you are not going to commit crimes, if, according to Generation Identity, they said they are going to uphold maritime law, then Patreon should not have acted unless they did demonstrate breaking the law and a conviction of breaking the law. I will not be taking down my Patreon. I will never take it down. And the main reason is most of the people who support me aren't as adamant about the politics, but there are a decent amount of people who are upset by this. And I need to find a way to have alternatives in the case of a takedown, but also for people who don't want to support Patreon because they don't like what they did. But at the same time, I want to make sure that the people who have no problem with Patreon have an easy way to continue supporting me, and I don't want to put a burden on them because of a political controversy. Jack Conte is going to appear on the Rubin Report, and we will see what he has to say about all this. And I'll be honest, I don't like what they did, what Patreon did. It pissed me off. It was abrupt, and it was scary that someone could just snap their fingers and take away your money, and that says, look, that's a vulnerability, especially for news and politics. But at the same time, I think Patreon has learned a pretty valuable lesson so far, because a lot of people have pulled off the platform. And we're hearing that Sam Harris, for a variety of reasons, is also going to be pulling off the platform, and he's got 12,000 plus supporters. So I'm willing to hear what Jack has to say, and in his video he talks about how he's going to be implementing a warning system and an appeal system because people deserve a second chance. And I agree with that. I think Patreon deserves a second chance. But I also think that there are a lot of people who are upset, who don't want to give them a second chance, and that it's their right to do so. So I will be looking for alternatives, and in all likelihood will settle on some kind of alternative, be it an independent platform on my website, and in the future will likely be telling people to go there to support me. But I will not close my Patreon account, and we'll see what happens on Monday with the Rubin Report. I'm excited to see that Jack is going to go and sit in the hot seat and have Rubin talk to him about everything that happened. And I'm willing to give people a second chance. I hope many of you are too. It's, I don't want people to remain mad and hold grudges forever. I want people to say, I know we have our differences, I know we've screwed up, but you know what, man, let's make this work. And so I still really like Patreon, but I think there's a very high probability that I will probably be focusing on other platforms, and I will be focusing very heavily on Minds.com. So, let me know what you think. Oh, this was, I don't know. I hate controversies like this. I hate doing these meta videos talking about ourselves and whatever. There's so many cool people over at this hacker convention in Vegas that you should be hearing from, but these conversations need to happen. So again, comment below, let me know what you think. Click the like button, I guess. I mean, I don't feel like this is a video where you particularly need to be telling me you like it or not, but I guess it helps the channel. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at TimCast. For real, I think we need to keep talking about this, so let's keep talking about it. Tweet at me, whatever. And if you want to support me, for those of you that like Patreon and don't mind it, I am on Patreon at patreon.com/TimCast. There's my bias. I use the platform. I make money there, so it is available. But you can also go to minds.com/TimCast. And I'm not quite sure how it works, but there's some posts that have like a key symbol on it, and when you click that, you can subscribe for $10 a month to some personalized messages, and I try and do behind-the-scenes photos and videos when I can. Right now, I'll just say, at DEF CON it's difficult because there's harsh filming and photography policies, so I can't do a lot of photos and videos. But yeah, stay tuned. New videos every day at 4 p.m. I've got more serious. I'm gonna go do some fact checking on some stories as it pertains to this. So don't lose hope. I may have a relatively interesting update tomorrow on all of this that's going on that may change the conversation. I've got to go do that now. So I'll see you tomorrow at 4.